Welcome to session 8 of Coping with COVID-19. This session will be about anxiety. My name is Gerry Vassar, President and CEO of Lakeside.
Hi, I'm Diane Wagenhals, and I'm the Program Director for Lakeside Global Institute. And I have to say, at the moment, I'm feeling a little anxious because we're going to be talking about anxiety, and we want to do it well.
And it's a vast topic.
We've just noticed that.
We've just noticed, as we were discussing preparation, how interesting this is to condense it into a short period of time. So hang on, this might take a while. It's interesting, our culture, because Lakeside's involved in so many students' lives and families' lives, I think some 3,600 students a year, and we deal with a lot of trauma situations. I know I have folks that I deal with, you have folks that you deal with, and we see sort of a culture of anxiety.
Yes.
And of course now, on top of our normal anxiety levels, we have COVID-19 and some of the issues of people feeling, even some people who haven't had anxiety before feeling anxiety and having all kinds of interesting responses, but also people that have more chronic forms of anxiety are really, really struggling. Like most of our social ills, they've just sort of been exacerbated by COVID-19. Let's talk a little bit about how we get into this topic in terms of how the brain works, because we know that's somewhat synonymous with fear. Maybe if we talk a little bit about how fear works and then migrate that over to what anxiety is like, and maybe we can come up with some ideas to help people that are struggling with it. So Give me your thoughts about that in terms of fear.
And the connection between fear and anxiety,
Correct.
because they are sort of like first or second cousins to each other. They're not exactly the same. Usually fear, you know what you're afraid of. There's some thing or some danger, either it's happening or impending, or if you see the illustration, you look out your window and there's a bear that's walking up your driveway and it's like, what do I do? Mm-hmm. That's a fear response. Anxiety can be more of a state of mind, a state of being, and it washes over a person from an internal sense of not being safe. And the safety isn't just because there's a bear. The safety a lot of times is because you're not safe within yourself. Mm. And so if we think about fear, that's its own topic. But I think we probably want to focus more on anxiety right now. Mm-hmm. So when people are if you're watching this and you know or you suspect that you have a lot of anxiety just in general in your world, chances are this is resonating with you, which, by the way, I hope you watch the safety plan thing. Use a safety plan when you're thinking about this, because you can actually trigger anxiety. You can heighten it. You can do panic attacks as a result of excessive anxiety, which usually means your body just released a whole bunch of cortisol and set you off, and it's a wave of anxiety that is, if you have never had a panic attack, you don't know what I'm talking about. If you have, this is probably resonating with you. So
part of the consequence of this, the outcome of chronic anxiety, is a release of cortisol that's almost kind of constant in the body.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Right. And it's a fear hormone. It's a good hormone to have because it gives you a wave of energy. But if it's misplaced, if your body is releasing all of that, normally you're going to do the whole fight, flight, freeze kind of thing. You're going to try to get away from it. But if you don't even know or realize that you're feeling anxious about something, it seems to come out of the blue.
So it feels like there's a real thing I'm afraid of, maybe there isn't a bear per se, but the feeling that I have is this very much close to what I feel when I'm in a fear state, but it feels a little more chronic.
Yeah, and it's more nebulous. It's anxiety. You can put your finger more on fear, but anxiety has this component to it of being strange and weird. And I know because I have had anxiety issues since my teen years, with a lot of panic and all of that. So I know I'm talking because I've experienced this, and still do. And we're going to talk a little bit about what to do about it, because I never thought I'd get to a place where I wasn't living in a state of constant anxiety, and I'm there. I'm not in constant anxiety anymore.
So there's hope
Absolutely.
to change this.
There's absolute hope.
Right.
So, and knowing that there's things that you can do, we want to make sure we emphasize that for people, because it's really scary. And a lot of times I think it comes from feeling like there's something wrong with you. You're not meeting expectations. You're disappointing people. There's a fear, I think, of abandonment because you aren't somebody people want to be around. We talked before about one of the reactions to being in a place of fear. The healthiest reaction is to be able to flock. And you talk about fight, flight, freeze, but the F word, which is not really the F word, pardon me.
Just so you know.
But it sounds a little like it. And every time I have to say flock, I think, say it right. But that's a healthy response to being in danger.
Oh, great, but I'm social distancing now, so how do I call people in to help me when I can? And I think
doesn't that produce anxiety then because you can't flock?
Yeah, you can't flock. And I also think that when if we're feeling inadequate because of our fears, because of our anxiety, we tend not to run to other people anyway. We tend to want to be avoiding people, I think, and I think that's one of the problems.
It's one of the problems, and we think we're defective.
Yeah.
We think nobody else understands this. We think it's talk about isolation. When you have a lot of anxiety, you're also isolated within yourself from others because you feel defective and you feel there's something wrong. And then it just escalates. It mushrooms from that to then I can't do anything. I'm going to be like this forever. And you want to try to escape from yourself. And that doesn't work too well because where are you going to go? You go anywhere and you're still there.
And how much of this, Diane, is internal messaging? Because we're feeling inadequate. We're feeling like we can't. We're not able. We don't have the capacity to deal with this issue or to fight. I've had people in my office and they're chronically in anxiety all the time and they think it's a hopeless situation.
Right.
I think that it feels like there's not much I can do about this. And so in the process of this dynamic, I'm wondering, okay, is that because of messaging inside of me? Is that because of things that have happened, well, the trauma language, what happened to me sometime? Is it possible that, even we've talked about, in utero, we've talked about attachment, we've talked about trauma, we've talked about a lot of different things.
Right.
Is there a piece of this in play that is about what's happened to me?
Or what hasn't happened that should have happened.
Okay, another point, right.
I think for those of us with a lot of chronic anxiety, early on there are beliefs that are created. We talk to ourselves all the time. Mm-hmm. I think the estimates are we have 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts in a day. I mean, that's a lot of...
No wonder I'm tired at the night.
But I think it's escalated these days because we have so much more to think about, and a lot of times it's about feeling unsafe. But I think for the anxiety thing is about the internal world.
Right. Your private world is really...
Yes.
Okay.
And fear can be more about external stuff. So if internally, and sometimes it's, I feel like we whisper to ourselves sometimes. Mm-hmm. I used to try to explain what was going on for me when I had massive panic attacks. And I had this image, and this may date me quite a bit, but in the cartoons there was the Tasmanian devil. I don't know if you remember. You probably remember that, but some of you might. Anyway, it was this like horrible little creature from the inside, from another planet or from Tasmania, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, Google it, Tasmanian devil. But it felt like there was a part of me inside that was dangerous, and I couldn't, and it was my job to control it. Mm-hmm. Now, where did that come from? Right. Other than I was told I made a lot of mistakes, and I must have, it must have been such a disappointment growing up. Those subtle messages leave you sometimes with a deep sense of inadequacy. But for me, I was afraid of me, that I was somehow going to hurt somebody because I had this part of me. That was my way it manifested.
And I think as many people as there are having anxiety, there may be as many responses to what their fear might be.
Probably each person's going to have unique. But part of what you can do is slow it down to say, what am I actually saying to myself? I have suggested, and it helped me, write it down. Write down what that part of you inside is torturing you, what things are being said that are your thoughts. And you can actually start to say, is that really true? Can I lean on other people? Am I lovable? That's a big one. You know, if you really knew me, you wouldn't possibly be able to care for me. Because if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me. Working on that and finding people who will give you the kind of affirmations that really help you.
And that's that private world messaging that
Yes.
can really leave us isolated and not willing
Yes.
to take a risk and go out and do those things. So we have this hovering sense of anxiety. I think part of it we're saying it might be amplified or exacerbated by being in COVID, but it might be just a regular state of being as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about just a few ideas that may help people with this hovering sense of I am sort of encased in anxiety and I'm not sure what to do
Right.
about it. So what are some ideas?
Well, and before, I just feel like it's now being, you said exacerbated, you can almost hold it off by keeping busy and doing some other things, and after a while that doesn't work.
Doesn't last forever.
Doesn't
right?
last forever, and it's like, here we go again, and
Right.
how do I manage my anxiety? And that's part of the question. Are we managing the anxiety, or are we actually healing and recovering from it? It's really okay to have both. It's really okay to say, what do you need to do? Sometimes it's distractions. It's the regulation stuff we've talked about. It's writing some things down. It's checking what you're actually thinking and all of that. That may help you manage it in the moment. The healing process is a bigger one. I think the healing process is going back, and you already mentioned that, going back to where did this start? And it's figuring out your narratives, because a lot of times we have these, they're called disintegrated narratives. They're really like what you know about yourself isn't really clear to you. And then because when something's not clear, we can go to the place of, well, there's something wrong then. And as soon as we go to, if there's something wrong, now we're going to feel like we're in danger. Can you see how it kind of cycles around? So getting in front of that somehow with...
Something I've talked about on occasion is to try to get us from the bottom of the brain to the top of the brain. There's regulation activities that you can do, but there's always this interesting questioning, what's going on for me? Where did this come from? Is it a legitimate message? Does it track from somebody or who's influenced me in my life? Is my private world really skewed because of the influence of trauma or something or someone or messaging or those kinds of things, which to me is hopeful, because if I can begin to get a perspective on that and say what's true and what's not true, I think I can turn the volume down on the anxiety. Because if it's not true and I'm believing it's true, like I'm not good enough or I'm incapable, some of the most capable people I have seen are people that have been driven by anxiety and fear and performance. And then it just drives and drives and drives and drives, but then they collapse because of the exhaustion and all the cortisol and all the body damage that's been done. When in fact, maybe if we could have handled the cause at the very beginning, and they knew that and got some help with that, it might be a whole different way of managing their private world of anxiety.
Right. I think it's important to know in this age of isolation that you're not alone.
Another big piece here.
Another big piece, you may feel alone, but you aren't. I was shocked when I found out, and I was probably in my 20s when I discovered a lot of other people out there were struggling with some of the same things I was.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I'm not the weirdo I thought I was. Well, maybe I am, but I'm not as weird as my inner brain was making me. I thought I was all alone and I was the only one. And then it's like, oh, you have that too? So sometimes finding other people who are going to be supportive to you, who can, everybody will be unique, but there can be so many similarities. And you aren't all alone. And not just dwelling on all the things that make you feel terrible, but also being able to find out that you have power. Power is a huge part of this. When you're anxious, think about it.
So finding your personal power
Yes.
becomes part of managing anxiety.
And maybe getting with people who will help you figure out, where is your power? With this whole COVID thing, where's our power? we actually have the power to socially distance. We have the power to learn. We have the power to discern some of what we're hearing on the news. Those are powers. So that can be to say, I have power. What is that power that I have?
So I'm hearing a lot of different ideas here. We're managing a private world that's full of anxiety. It's a hovering effect. It's pressing us down. We can ask, where is this coming from? We can ask questions about, how have I lost my power? How can I regain my power? Is what I'm thinking and feeling and believing true?
Right.
What diversions can I use?
Yeah.
Do I need to regulate?
Right.
Can I regulate my inner self right now?
Right.
And again, what strategy actually works to help reduce this feeling of this hovering anxiety that's pressing on us? And then finally, I think it's important, and you begin to move into this, is to be able to talk to others about it. And it may be a friend, it may be a supportive individual with you, it may be a co-anxiety bearer with you, or it could be a therapist to help you manage this.
And the other, when you were talking, the other thing I think that can be a driver inside is perfectionism. If I don't do it just right, and what's going on right now with so many unknowns, I think that's for everybody can be a source of anxiety. Is how am I supposed to manage something I've never experienced before? I don't have any tools. I don't know what's going on. That's going to produce anxiety. If somebody's already got chronic anxiety, and that's already a big issue for them, that's going to come out too. And
so perfectionism and things that even within COVID I cannot control.
Right.
How do you be perfect at that? That's like very interesting.
if you find that out,
yeah,
you could bottle that and make $1 million.
Diane, thank you. That's quite a long discussion on anxiety because it's a very complex topic. So thank you for joining us. I hope that was helpful. And again, if you're struggling with anxiety and it feels insurmountable, it feels overwhelming, remember that there's some helps on the internet. There are some things you can read that are all about anxiety if you Google that. And there's also maybe your local therapist that you might want to see. And by all means, talk to a friend. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Coping with COVID-19, and we hope to see you again.